Hello, everyone, and welcome to Unwrapped, the pick and roll podcast presented by C2C Sports. We take the heavy lifting out of uniforms and merchandise. Head to c2csport.com.au and enter the code PICKROLL, that's PICKROLL, for 10% off your first order when you gear up with C2C. Adam Webster with you, and I'm joined by the General Manager of Basketball for the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix of the NBL, Simon Mitchell. Simon, thank you so much for making the time to spend with us today on Unwrapped.
My pleasure, Adam. It's nice for you to invite me.
It's really good to see you. We did a podcast a few years ago where it was the end of your coaching tenure in the NBL, and we went through teams and players. And at that point, you're free and easy and out of the league in the official capacity. So we had a really good chat about certain players. We can't do that today because you're representing a certain team, but we can talk about that team in the last 12 months. Because it has been a really interesting, fascinating 12 months for the Phoenix. I want to start 12 months ago. You were entering a season with Mike Kelly as coach. You had strong local core, obviously strong imports, and the season obviously didn't start the way that you wanted it to. 0-5. You made a decision at that point in time. I don't want to ask you about the particulars around the decision, but I want to ask you what you learned as a club, as a GM, and what you've taken from that you can now apply to future seasons in the NBL in your role or in other roles. I'm not interested in talking about individuals and performance and that sort of stuff, but it's more about you and what you learned.
Oh, I think coming into this job, and it's never existed at Southeast Melbourne, and it's only sort of come into fruition at a lot of clubs in recent times in the general manager role. Every day is a learning experience. So that period, obviously, there was a lot to sort of navigate and a lot to consider as to how what was the best pathway for us to, I guess, get to where we felt we could reach our potential. And obviously, we came to the decision to make a change in the head coaching role. What did we learn from that? Look, there was a million different lessons during that process. I honestly couldn't name them all, but I guess one of the things is that you can be a really, really good coach and not have results with a team because of compatibility or whatever it is. And Mike's a great coach, and he had all the sign off on all of the players, but for whatever reason, it didn't click. And he's obviously had teams in the past where it's clicked, but it wasn't clicking this year. And we just had to come up to it. We just had to make a decision. Are we going to reach our potential under Mike? And look, who knows? Maybe we would have, but our feeling was that we would get there quicker with a change. So we went that direction. But yeah, like that was there was many, many, many lessons, and they were, every day is a lesson, and even today.
You've learned something today already, have you, mate?
Oh, yeah. It's off season. We're trying to find, fill out those last couple of spots. And every time you sit down and talk to an agent, you learn something new. So it's good.
Absolutely. And you went, it was, I think, 26-8 or 24-8 to finish the season, which, I think spoke to the fact that you made a bold decision, and that decision paid off for your club and your players at the time. You brought in Josh King. You had some brilliant performances from Matt Hurt last season. But I think the thing that strikes me about teams that tend to do well in the NBL is continuity, and also continuity of local core, which you've been able to establish on Foxwell with Angus Glover, with Geordie Hunter in the team. Was that a focus for you going into roster construction at the start of last season, that it was about putting together a championship list last season, but it was as much about creating continuity for the next 2-3 seasons and that sort of period of time?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's probably two main issues, or two things you aim for in this role, but even as a coach, that are going to sort of determine your success. And continuity is one of them, and health is the other. We didn't have the continuity last year. We had 9 new players come into the program. But we were able to probably, without a doubt, have the healthiest season we've ever had. Obviously, we weren't unscathed at all.
Of course.
But Derek Walton Jr. succumbing to a couple of injuries throughout the course of the year, but making his way back just in time for the playoffs. But I mean, never really at his peak, and not being able to build that rhythm. That was one of the things we weren't able to attain during the course of the season. But that's compared to previous season, that was sort of a minor detail for us. But we were able to stay healthy, and this year, touching wood, hopefully we stay healthy and we're able to build upon that core that we've developed.
How would you categorize that local core? Sobey, Glover, Foxwell, Hunter, Malik Lewis as well, entering his second season. What sort of characteristics would you say they are able to bring to the team as a local core? How would you kind of categorize your brand of basketball and brand of roster?
Yeah, so I think in that group, you've got a fair bit of athleticism for your locals, which is really important. Firstly and foremost, all great people, wonderful people who add their own sort of fibre to the club. Sobes brings that elite level scoring, but we saw last year there's more to his game and you can drag more out of it. And I thought Josh did, and Sam as well, did a great job of just tapping into a little bit more, maybe more of the Sobes that Joey had in Adelaide, where you can just get a little bit more than just the lethal scorer. And all the credit to Nathan and just sort of throwing himself into that role as well, and showing everybody, hey, I've still got it. So yeah, you get that elite scoring. Foxwell's an up and comer. Who knows what his ceiling is? A lot of people look at his frame and say, oh, well, there might be a ceiling on that, but he just keeps proving people wrong. His endeavor, his prowess at the defensive end, his ball pressure, his shooting's really taken off. He could become a long-term starter, not just in the NBL, but maybe other leagues, and a regular for Boomers. Glove, he's just one of the best blokes you'll come across in basketball. Geordie, our captain, articulate, smart, witty, and athletic as all heck. We've just got to tap into that a little bit more as well. I feel like we didn't quite have the support. We weren't able to provide him with the support he needed last year. But this year we're hoping that there's a little bit more there for him to work with.
Oh, Foxwell, it's an interesting one because it strikes me back to a quote from TJ McConnell recently about it's been circulating a lot around the NBA Finals around how hard work is a skill. And, I think what you see from Owen Foxwell is just a consistent application of hard work every single minute he's on the court. Does that make practice so much more important and fun for Josh King as a coach? Because it doesn't matter whether you're bringing in an import, a high-level local. If they're going up against Owen Foxwell, and, the Jack Jumpers would often say this about Fabian Krislovic in practice, that Will Magnay would sing his praises and say, every single practice, he just makes me a better player because he goes so hard. I imagine it's the same with Owen, right? That's why he's
without a doubt. Yeah, no, without a doubt. He's fearless. And I agree with what TJ McConnell says, that, like hard work is a skill. You can have all the talent in the world. What we want as coaches or as administrators or whatever we are in the sport, not players, they're involved in the development of the athlete, is to have them reach their potential. And without that sort of that hard work, that toughness, the resilience that Foxy has in spades, it's very, very difficult to reach your potential. Now, your potential, that doesn't mean his ceiling's higher than others. There may be guys who don't have quite the moxie that he does that will still become better players, just purely on talent and physicality, and the way that, DNA. But, Foxy, there's no doubt. You see a guy like him, Mitch Norton, Damian Martin, those type of players, you just know, a Shea Illy, they're going to reach their potential. They're going to leave it out on the floor for you. And that's a true talent.
It's so important to have that sort of player. And if you've got one really good young player that's projecting to be great, you've got a second in Malik Lewis, because he's returning to the team, choosing not to enter into the NBA draft this season. He's really speaks to his self-awareness to understand where he's at, where he wants to be. I think it speaks a lot for next stars returning back to their teams for a second season about their maturity in trying to position themselves to be the best player possible, to be picked in the right situation. What have you seen from Malik over the last 12 months and leading into this decision to stay with your club that makes you more confident of his future as a great player across his career, no matter if it's here or the association, as our friend Matt McQuaid says?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of layers to Malik that I've noticed. Firstly, his playing abilities improved. When we brought Malik in, I think we either underestimated or he made huge strides in between his G League season and coming to the NBL, which I think is probably what happened, because he went through those NBA tryouts and processing, and just got a renewed level of confidence in his game. So we got a better player than what we were expecting. We thought he'd be a 4-man. He became a 4-3. Like, he was able to put the ball on the floor, make decisions off the dribble a little better than what we expected. But having said that, that continued to improve throughout the course of the year. So I feel like if he can really sort of get that side of his game, the decision-making off the dribble, because he's a late comer to the game, and his jump shot, if that can become more consistent, then we're going to see an NBA player. Even from a technical aspect, defensively, he's a very good player. He came out and did jobs all year long, and different types of athletes, and even down the stretch, he had that really good game against Montrez where he's able to use his strength, and he's formidably strong. But technically, there's a long way for him to go as a defender, I feel. And, he survives on instinct and athletic ability. And once he gets that down, I mean, he could be, a world-class guy as a defender. And that will take him to the NBA. If he can knock down the jumper, make good decisions off the dribble, that the level of defense that he can apply will take him to the NBA and keep him there a long time, make him a valuable commodity.
Leading into this season, you've already picked one import player in Amari Moore, who's come to you from Turkey. Josh King has now had the opportunity to put his imprint on this roster. He's now coming in and doing a full preseason with you and choosing the players that he wants to go to war with. And I use that metaphor very deliberately because Josh is an aggressive defensive coach. And it strikes me that he would want to pick players that sort of fit that mold and allow him to flex his great strength. What have you seen from Josh's approach? And then what led to Moore being the signing that you've made for the first import spot?
Well, Mari and Josh have a relationship that goes back to 12 months previous when Mari took his first professional gig outside of America in Turkey with Durusafaka, where Josh was coaching. So they went through that dance back then, got to know each other. Josh obviously knew his game inside out from doing the review of his performances in both Canada and also G League and going back to college. So it's a player that he knew very well. It's a player he got to know in preseason. He only had him for the 2 games. But even when we were sort of reviewing Josh and before bringing him into Southeast, watching the games and trying to articulate his game style and, would it work with the personnel that we had and all those sorts of things, it was kind of like, man, this kid can play. So we kind of, one of the first conversations we had when I picked him up at the airport was like, so tell me about Amari Moore. This is a good guy. So when Josh, talked about putting the season together, first guy he wanted to bring up was Amari. And, I feel what I'm most positive about with the type of player that Amari is, that larger point guard, is that he can swing between positions. Sometimes you get point guards that are just point guards, or you get a center and just a center. The 2s and 3s and 4s, they seem to interact and play, each other's positions these days. But having a one-man that can fling to the 2 or 3, for me, is really important because we have Owen Foxwell. And if you got yourself a stud point guard that requires 30 minutes a game, then we're probably disabling Foxy's progress in the game. So I want to make sure as we develop this squad that we've got players that are interchangeable in position. So there's certain guys not guaranteed their minutes, but have every opportunity to get their minutes, and their development can continue.
There's also an element of you want your best 5 guys out there at the end. And on certain nights, Owen's going to be one of your best 5 guys, right? So you're going to have Moore and Foxwell and Sobey and potentially Glover and go a little bit smaller and see how those guys complement each other.
Yeah, I think so. And one of the things that we really wanted with Foxy this offseason was to get offshore, not play NBL 1. He's done all he needs to do in NBL 1.
Yep.
To get him offshore and playing, he was able to do that down with Sam McKinnon in New Zealand. And it is a different responsibility. Okay, now it's your job to lead your team to victory, not come in, impact, and then go back to the bench. It's now your team internationally. If you don't get it done, your job's on the line. So we were really, headstrong in saying that's the direction we feel like he needs to go to make the next step up. So now I'd like to think that he's had that little bit of experience. He's gone to Europe with the Adidas camp, that he'll be in a position where he can go and close out games if needed.
Yeah, we've seen the Jack Jumpers do the same thing with Sean McDonald in recent years as well. It's a really reliable playbook to say, go and play summer league, go and play somewhere else, and you have to earn your spot every single game, day in, day out. So it's a great test for a great young player, and obviously going to pay off for you guys heading up to this season. So you've just come back from Japan, Simon. So tell me about that experience, because the Japanese market, the NBL, we've seen more and more synergy between those two markets over the last couple of years. Perth played a couple of games there around this time last year. How did you find the Japanese experience, Japanese fans? I'm going to Tokyo with my family next month, so I'd like to know if you got a good ramen spot as well. But how did you find the fans? How did you find the atmosphere?
It was a great tour, and a huge win for the NBL, I feel, and a win for the B League and NBL relations. I thought the games, whilst for two teams that are not too familiar with each other, in regards to your teammates, they're thrown together at short notice. We had 3 training sessions going into the game. I'm not sure how many they had. They said they'd had 3, but they looked like they may have had a couple more. But it was. Whilst the games weren't terribly pretty, mostly because of skill errors, the intent and the intensity and the physicality was off the charts. So the people who got to the games, they were in Gunma, which is about 2 hours northwest of Tokyo. Not a big town, but the people still came for those games. And to have those games back-to-back and have good crowds for both of them, the people were making the journey from Tokyo to go check it out. So I feel like the games were a huge success. The Japanese team was really competitive. Loved our team. Loved them. Everybody on the trip were just as a blast to be with them. There was a real synergy created in that group to the point where on the flight back is like everyone saying, "Oh man, can we do it again next year? We've got the same crew. We've got to run it back." So we all really enjoyed each other's company, and we got the wins, which is important. But just as important, we made great relationships with B League, the players that we played against, and I think that's a real important pathway for the NBL going forward. Like the B League is a huge league, not far from us, with a lot more money. And a lot of our players are getting drawn to that league. So we need to build relationships. We need to have an understanding, and we need to help Japanese basketball develop. It's a neighbor of ours. They're in the Asia Cup contingent, and there's some things that we can get them in their development, and they can help us with the growth of our league as well.
It's a win-win partnership for me, and I hope it continues to grow strong. I know superfan Kelly, who's a huge fan of Matthew Dellavedova, does a lot of artwork for the NBL and is a great presence. We might end up getting him on this show as well. I might have a coffee with him in Tokyo while I'm there. Simon,
I might just add though, you won't find a bad food place. Like if it's ramen or if it's sushi, sashimi, you're not going to find a bad one.
I'm looking forward to it. I might need to need to go for a run every second day though that I'm over there. That's for sure. I get steps up. So I mean, you're about to head to Summer League. So I'm interested in your approach to going over to what is known as one of the great networking events on the basketball calendar, as well as you'd be going there with a little bit of a shopping list in mind, wouldn't you? You've got a couple of spots to fill in the roster, and potentially you might be having a look at a couple of players along the way.
Potentially, we might have a shopping list. Not so much. I don't see Summer League, like the players that are on the floor, there's very few of interest. They're mostly really young that can't come in and contribute to the NBL. So that's not to say they're not extraordinarily talented players, but they've got to probably go through a few levels, whether it be G League for a year or two or smaller leagues in Europe, before they're ready. Say again?
Like it's relationships with agents even more than it is players, right?
Yeah, so there's a lot of the networking element to it, but there is also, what the public don't see. They'll see the games on ESPN, but they won't see that there's plenty of open gyms that are on during that period, run by a lot of agencies. So those are probably a better place to go and find talent that can help you straight away. So I know when we got Kiefer Sykes, it was at Summer League 2 years earlier that I first discovered him and met with him and had chats about basketball and whatnot. So it's more about building for the future. As much as finding a player for tomorrow. It's and as you say, the networking and making sure you buy the right people a good steak. That works as well. But look, for me, I'm not a Vegas guy. I don't sort of get on the punt, like the dance clubs are not my scene. So it's pretty much just straight business and sweating out a lot of Nevada heat.
Be a lot of you looking up what certain metal bands are touring around the Vegas area at certain times.
They just closed my favorite metal bar in Vegas, so I'm out of places to go.
Yeah, devastating. Any recommendations? Then please send them Simon's way because I'm sure he wants to know where to find some good acts. Simon, heading forward to this season, what does your next sort of month, 6 weeks, 8 weeks look like in the lead up to the preseason? Obviously, Josh King is heading back from Puerto Rico. You've got Summer League. You've just picked up Angus Glover from the airport off Puerto Rico. He's wanting to have a little bit of a rest there. What does the next 6 to 8 weeks look like for you and your team? How do you ramp up into a state where you can be really comfortable getting into August, September, getting into the regular season? Because as you said, health is the other most important thing. So you have to be so mindful of not overloading these guys that have just come from really important overseas seasons, that have just had national duties, that have just had NBL select duties, that have just had New Zealand NBL duties. It must be such a different problem to have than, say, 10 or 20 years ago, where you're really getting a plan for each and every player based on the amount of basketball that they've played over the last few months and based on their individual situations.
Yeah, I guess so. For the next 6 weeks, for our organisation in general, we'll finalise those roster spots. We're pretty close. I'm pretty keen to keep the Australian roster spot open for a little while. And drag a few guys through the gym, and because I feel like obviously with the 2 import spots to nail down, I feel like if we get the guys that we're working with right now onto the roster, we're going to be multi-dimensional and have numerous options at each position of the floor. So it's going to come down to that last piece, the Australian. It's going to be someone who's just going to be best fit with the greatest upside, and someone that we can work with to bring along. So I want to open up the gym a little bit and get the coaches reviewing a few different players, and keep those. And what I love about that also is just that if you got someone playing for a spot going into training camp, it's going to bring a little extra juice. So that's something that we've kind of discussed, but we'll wait and see. If the right person was to drop in our lap at the right time, then obviously we'll jump at it. But at the moment, I'd really like to keep that open. So the next 6 weeks we've got Summer League, then we'll reconvene. We're going to start up on the 28th of July, get the guys coming in doing their physicals.
Yep.
Some have already done them who have got in early. Sobes, as you said, arrived earlier today. But yeah, 1st of August is go time. And we'll I'll leave that to the coaching staff as to how pre-season looks, the coaches and the high performance manager. But I know I'm looking forward to getting down there and seeing the gym full of for fresh faces and seeing some really competitive hit-outs.
You're watching a lot of NBL 1 basketball in your spare time, Simon, and just sort of paying attention to a few of those kids that are really standing out?
Yeah, we do. And we also open up the gym Wednesdays. When I say open up the gyms, we invite players in from NBL 1 to come in and work out. And some of them are working out during the week as well. So it's great to be in touch with those guys. As a coach back in the day, that was one of my favorite things, was opening up the gym in the off season and getting to know these young men, and seeing them year after year and seeing their development. And then you eventually, hopefully, they make it onto your training squad / roster. So a lot of fun can be had. I find that an intriguing part of the year. That's where you discover a kid like an Owen Foxwell. So you're always on the lookout.
Brilliant. Simon Mitchell, thank you so much for spending some time with us on Unwrapped, presented by C2C Sports. Make sure you use code PICKROLL, PICKROLL, at c2csports.com.au for 10% off your first order. Simon, best of luck this season. Enjoy Vegas. Hopefully find a metal bar that is to your liking, and thanks for being on Unwrapped.
No worries, Adam. Cheers, mate.